You're watching the Batter Fans Network.
The heroes are back. Beards talking balls, rapping pink and black. Coming live from the 305, it's official tissue. The Batter Fan, Chris and Dan, weekly rocking with you. We talk Messi, Boosie, Jordy, Lucho, the Fat Four, to Ben Cram, Noah, Ruiz, Fred. What more could you ask for? Tighten up and get ready, listen in on the pod. Solana and X in Espanol, just to even the odds. Breakdowns and gas bagging, join the tribe and just vibe. $3.99, don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't hesitate, say what's up, go ahead and come in. No question about it, I'm ready to get hurt again.
No question about it, I am ready to get hurt again.
Danny, you're still in Orlando. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Batter Herons podcast. I am your host, KBD, Chris, and alongside me, I do not have Danny because he is still in Orlando. He's up there celebrating a win against Auckland City. As you could tell, Auckland City's game had a total of like 100 fans or something like that. So he's up there. He should be making his way down to Miami in no time. And by the way, before I get started, guys, for those of you that are in the chat, thank you guys so much for sticking around. I know that we had put the show to start at 9. We ended up putting it to start at 10. Forgot to go ahead and update it, but much appreciated. Eric, shout out to you. Get some rest, Papa. Yo, and then Jekka, what's up? Everybody's good. Yep, Mr. Krabs, Danny is still at Disney World. So, Soccer Daddy's here mentioning Inter Miami versus Botafogo. We can't get too far, okay, Soccer Daddy? We can't. We can't look ahead of our opponent. As you guys can tell, we're going to be previewing the game coming up this Monday against Palmeiras, and much appreciated. Thank you for coming back, Isaiah. Love that you still, came back and kicked around with us. Love Logic saying Boca Juniors are just kicking legs. Listen, there's been some competitive games going on, guys. But the first thing I want to kind of mention is the first thing that we have on this list over here. I'm used to being on the other side. Is we got some momentum. We had an awesome win, and it was against Porto, a formidable opponent. A lot of people didn't expect us to get that win. A lot of our fans as well. A lot of pundits didn't expect us to get the win as well. And guys, it feels great even after the fact. It's right what Danny says. We can't take away the importance of winning a game of such magnitude against a team like Porto, regardless of how the rest of this tournament goes. But I want more. I smell blood, and I want more, guys. I don't know about you guys, if you guys are good with settling with that win and then just shipping off and not doing anything else great in this tournament, but I want more. Now, Isaiah is saying LAFC and Seattle are out. I actually kind of hoped better out of LAFC, and Seattle's actually been showing, some pretty good grit, I guess. And it says, yo, our Baldi is at the Bayern Boca match. Yes. We have Solana out at that match. And Love Logic saying Miami will finish in the quarterfinals. Trust. Mike V calling it. Same thing. I said quarterfinals. And Jekka saying we have to. So as far as like the starting 11 goes, right here, guys. As far as the starting lineup goes for the starting 11, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the old starting 11 from the last game real quick. So here we have a couple players that we might see some changes out of. Wagon and Ian Frey ended up getting injured last game. Frey looked like he has a significantly more, I guess, serious injury. So I think Frey is not going to be a part of this back four here. I do think that Wagon, it was just a little knock, and I think that he'll be on, absolutely. I do believe, honestly, that Aviles will probably be getting the start if Frey doesn't get, in better shape and able to play. Aside from that, if it ain't broke here in the middle, don't fix it. Busquets, Kremaki, and Segovia worked perfectly centrally. Now, Allende, I mean, if you guys want to kind of go through and say, well, maybe we could bring in Fafa, because that's typically where everybody's going to go. right? Everybody's going to say, well, Allende played the worst. Let's go ahead and bring in another winger, right? But Allende does stretch the field for us. I mean, he has been more of a physical presence, and he also stretches the field as well. So I don't know. I don't know whether Fafa is a good replacement for him, or if we should keep him sort of coming off the bench. I mean, obviously with Suarez and Messi up top, we're not going to make any changes there. I believe that they're gonna be able to hold it down. And much appreciated, Francisco. People give a like to our host, Chris with a K. Guys, take the time, like and subscribe. Do whatever you got to do. It is much appreciated. And then right here, Mistiano is saying, what's a winger? That's what Mascherano's saying. That's funny. Miami King saying, only change should be Toto, I imagine, for Frey. That's probably going to be the one change that is going to happen out of this lineup here, unless Mascherano wants to outcoach himself and get fancy in the middle and start doing all kinds of nonsense and playing wing with Cremaschi or Segovia. Hey to Andres, much appreciated, guys. We do have a guest to go ahead and cover this game that's coming up against Palmeiras. It's the one game, literally, that we were all kind of looking forward to and saying, if there's a game where we might get outclassed, it's going to be this one. Now, I don't know if you guys have been following the Club World Cup and other teams, but these Brazilian teams have been kicking ass and taking names. If you're not Fluminense, the rest of the teams are just kicking ass out here. And there's a lot going on with the Brazilian teams. They're getting a lot more recognition. This Brazilian league is getting a lot more recognition. I'm going to go ahead and bring on our guest. Gustavo, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Gustavo. Much appreciated. Thank you so much for coming on and with such short notice.
I appreciate the invite. Appreciate the opportunity. I love to talk football, and so I'm here for it.
That's good, man. And we were just talking a little bit, in the backstage before starting the show. So you've been covering Flamenco for the Club World Cup, right?
Yes, I am the embedded reporter for the Zone, who is the right holder for the tournament. I've been with Flamengo since they arrived in the United States, since days before they arrived in the United States.
Nice.
So today I was at Lincoln Financial Field, Philadelphia, for the game against Chelsea. It was crazy. I was behind the goal where all the 3 Flamengo goals happened. So it's been a crazy day for me.
Well, I imagine that it's been a crazy couple days because not only have you had the coverage of Flamenco, but then you have Botafogo, who beat PSG, who's reputably, I guess, the best team in the world, right? Or at least that's how they're seen. And that was an incredible game. What have you picked up from a lot of the fans that are fans of the Brazilian league about what's going on in the Club World Cup?
First of all, yes, it was a crazy game the way the Botafogo played, but I'm a little bit more critical. I like to see a South American team dominating the game and winning. Like, for example, Palmeiras did with Porto, but they didn't win. Fluminense didn't do it. They dominated the game against Borussia, but they didn't win. And today, Flamengo dominated the game against Chelsea and they won. Botafogo scored a goal against the best team in the world, and then they sat back, which is okay. Tactically, they played perfectly, but today maybe was the first time that a team dominated the game and then won. What I picked up first is the unity. A lot of Brazilian fans cheering for each other, which doesn't usually happen. But the Botafogo fans cheering for Flamengo and vice versa and all that, which has been crazy to see. And there's the aim, bro. The past 5-6 years, Brazil, there's a lot of money going into the Brazilian league, and they've been able to sign all those good players that maybe will not go that route. So that just shows that there's a lot of equity going on, and maybe the gap between Europe and South America is not that big anymore.
Well, and I think that's the most important part, right? Like here on the show, we've talked a little bit about the leagues, the European leagues, and we believe that there's teams or leagues like League One, and there's other leagues out there that are claimed to be better than the Brazilian league. But we've spoken very openly here on the show. The Brazilian league, in our opinion, is a pretty good league. It should be up there in the top 5. I think it's arguable to be able to put them there.
Yeah, I don't want to go way into history, but until
Yeah.
95, maybe 96, Brazil had the best league in the world and definitely the best teams because they would go and win the World Cup, which is now the Intercontinental Cup every year. And
Yeah.
then the rules changed of federative rights for the players, and then all the money started going to Europe, and then a huge gap was created. And now, especially in Brazil, they start having that money back, and now they have, instead of institutions, you guys have, we now have associations, so we can buy a team in Brazil and put all the money, just like Botafogo did. Botafogo 5 years ago was a team that you would fight so hard to stay on the first division, and then a crazy American guy goes and buy the team. They start floating money into the team, and now they just beat PSG, right? So there's a lot of things going on in South America, in the Americas. I do believe Brazil is the fourth uh, hardest league in the world, and definitely the best league in the Americas by mile, in front of Liga Max and in front of the Argentinian league, in front of MLS, and they just now having an opportunity to show that level of quality.
Well, and I think the fact that there's so many eyes, and more eyes than what a lot of people anticipated, focused on what's going on with the Club World Cup, I feel like the Brazilian teams are doing more than enough and showing and showcasing how good the teams are in that league. But let's take a step back from the league
Mhm.
itself, and let's talk a little bit about Palmeiras. What were the expectations for Palmeiras in this group? I mean, we expected in the beginning when we were talking about this group that Palmeiras would be the top, that would be probably our most competitive matchup. So what do you think is the actual expectation?
And that's funny because I realized as soon as I got into the tournament that everybody was putting Palmeiras at first place in the
Yes.
group. Everybody, with exception of the Brazilians, all the Brazilians thought maybe Porto, maybe that will be the
Uh-huh.
matchup, because we didn't know. Because we have this debate, right? Where would the Brazilian teams ended up in the Portuguese league, which a lot of people say the Brazilians would win the Portuguese league. The Brazilians not. Flamengo and Palmeiras would win the Portuguese league, and where
Mhm.
would Flamengo and Palmeiras end on the Premier League? So we thought that the matchup against Porto was going to be way harder than it actually was. And then I was seeing everybody else saying, "Oh, Palmeiras is going to be the first one in the group," and I was like, "That doesn't sound right to us Brazilians because maybe we're a little more negative in that regards. Like we haven't beat an European team in so long." And then it was kind of cool to see that everybody else was saying, "Oh, Palmeiras is the hard team to beat." Um, Palmeiras in the past 5 6 years they have one of the best squads in Brazil. Um, yes, I am a veteran, by the way, in the U.S. Army. I don't know if he was mentioning to that, but just a nice fact out there. But Palmeiras is one of the best teams financially and structurally. They have the same head coach for 6 years, which is rare and almost impossible in Brazil, where we change coaches every 3 4 months.
I've learned
Um,
that.
and they have players. They have big players that maybe are not known, different from the Flamengo players. They have some players that are known in the whole world. Palmeiras has huge players in South America that are known, and they are used to big games. So that's a huge factor for me.
Well, I mean, you do have players like Esteval that I've noticed that he's been such a game changer for Palmeiras. And then not only that, but then you have Hendrik that's also been kind of, excelling in the team. So I imagine that the expectations were pretty high for Palmeiras. Now, what kind of formation do you guys does Palmeiras typically have? Because from the looks of it, from what I've noticed here, they typically run like a 4-2-3-1 with a couple center mids or center defensive midfielders.
Yes, they do. They do that formation, the 4-2-3-1. Um, they have a very solid back four, which is one of the best in the country and in the continent. With Gustavo Gomes, a Paraguayan defender, that's one of the best defenders I've seen. And some people say he's the best defender in Palmeiras history, which has a nice history of having some good center backs. They have two central midfields, which is where the confusion is starting to come from, which is Richard Rios, which is a pretty good as a second midfielder, a guy that's going to help with the creation. And then the
Yeah.
first guy on the midfield usually switches, but Anibal Moreno, who in this competition has been playing pretty well, which was a surprise. And then they go with attacking midfielder two wingers, Facundo Torres, former Orlando City, and also
That's right.
Estevan, who is sold to Chelsea. And then they have a striker, which has been their biggest weakness in the past years, which is to find a striker that can score goals regularly.
Well, and that's what I know. I picked up that Facundo Torres is on the team, and he's familiar with MLS play. He's played against Inter Miami on some very competitive games, and so he's a tool in the shed that I think could make a big difference for the team. As far as tactics go for the team, for Palmeiras, what kind of tactics do they typically do? Because I see that they run just out there. They just take blast off and then just go against teams. So what kind of tactics do they do? Are they a little bit more calculated?
They are a little bit more calculated. They're not compared to Flamengo and Palmeiras that usually play on a very fast tempo.
Yes.
Palmeiras slows things down a little bit more, and they like to have their attacking mids and Richard Rios and Rafael Veiga to touch the ball more in each play and trying to create. But since they have not had a striker or at least a striker that's been on form, they've been trying to be more versatile of how they have the ball and what do they do with the ball. So, for example, when you have Flaco Torres as a striker, the fullbacks are used way more so they can cross the ball, because Flaco, with the ball on his feet, he's not the best, but he's very good at crossing and heading the ball. So that's how they vary. So it depends on the striker. Now, with Vitor Roque as a striker, they use him as a target way more and then put those balls in between the defenders to try to get him behind. And that's when Veiga comes in, because he's a pretty good attacking midfielder with a lot of vision and a lot of shooting. So it kind of depends on who they have up front to see how they're going to play throughout the game.
Well, I noticed that when I was watching a lot of their recent games, at least this is kind of what I get from watching. I've noticed that they like to work it out from the outside in, right? There's a lot of crossing going on. There isn't much sort of build in the midfield. It's typically just hit the sidelines, cross it in, and find somebody open. Is that sort of the tactics that they use? Is that some of their strengths?
That's one of the strengths for sure, especially when they have Flaco Lopez up front. He's a pretty good header. A lot of people complain about him. He misses a lot of easy goals. He's one of those strikers, right, that they love to miss easy goals. And Palmeiras right now has Piquerez on the left, and in my opinion, he's the best left back in the Brazilian league right now, alongside Alexandre from Flamengo. Yeah, so he's a baller. He's a pretty good guy that can come inside in and also on the outside to cross the ball. So they use him a lot. He's one of the biggest piece on attack, because that's where Palmeiras gets their games, trying to run in behind, trying to get those balls into the box. And they also are a team that shoots pretty well from outside, especially Veiga. So they can hit you with a lot of different ways. Everything depends on who they have up front and how they're going to face that team, because they're going to try to control the ball. They're going to try to have the possession, but they're not that vertical with it like Flamengo and Botafogo are. So they kind of try to create and see some openings that some teams might just go for it. And Palmeiras just try to slow down a little bit. They can pass, they can watch the game, and then see, well, what's the best route for that specifically game.
Well, so what it sounds like to me is in the midfield, Palmeiras is extremely solid. But what sounds like a weakness to me is there isn't so much continuity up front at the striker position. So is that considered, I guess, somewhat of a weakness, or is there another weakness that we just haven't been able to see?
It's hard to explore. I believe it's hard to say that having a not so good striker is a weakness, because the other team can attack the striker, because the striker is so far up away from the goal, right? So how are we going to attack the striker from the other team? Makes no sense, right? But if you got to say that's the weakness of Palmeiras, it's been the striker position. They have not been able to find a consistent striker in the past 3-4 years, maybe. And if you look at other areas of the game, I would say speed between the center backs. The center backs are pretty good. Gustavo Gomez is going to win every single challenge that comes upon him, or almost every challenge. But if they face good guys on the inside that are fast, they're going to have a hard time, because Gustavo Gomez is getting up there in age. Murillo is not the smartest center backs out there. So when they face a little bit of speed, especially with the openings that Piqueires leaves on the field because he's always so high up. That's where Inter Miami can have a chance to try to score.
Well, I mean, look, Gus, Mike V is saying we're cooked against Palmeiras. And now, but this is another point. There's no Messi other than Messi. So Soccer Daddy has a point. I mean, it does help to have Messi on the team. But now this is and Eric is saying here, Albel Ferreira, the soccer terrorist, is the best coach in the Americas. Do you agree with that sentiment right there, Gus?
For the work that he's done, he's up there. 6 years in a Brazilian team, that's so rare, and like I've never seen it. I'm gonna speak to my team. I'm not gonna tell my team. I don't like to say which team do I support, but since I've been alive, I've never seen my team have the same coach from the start of the season to the end of the season, and that's so rare in Brazilian football. And he's just done it. He's won everything, man, and he's been having some issues, but this is his best squad since he joined Palmeiras. So I would say he's the best coach just because of the work that he's done. But Felipe Luis is getting up there.
Well, I'll tell you this much. I'm new to the sport. I just got into the sport a couple years ago, maybe like 3, 4, 5 years ago. And the one thing that Danny, my co-host, has mentioned to me is that coaches that stay long on a team is very, very rare in football. So, and I've picked that up a little bit into watching this sport. But here's a good question from MR. Who is better, Palmeiras or Botafogo?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I personally, just talking about squads, right? Palmeiras has a better squad, and Palmeiras has a better momentum. I mean, until Botafogo beat PSG, Palmeiras was a better team and a better momentum because the team that won the Copa Libertadores last year, Botafogo, they had so many players leaving, like Thiago Manda, Luis Enrique, and some others, and also the head coach. So at this moment, Palmeiras is a more solid team and more like they're more of a team than Botafogo is.
Well, I mean, look, guys, Flamengo is one of the teams in the Club World Cup. They're first in Serie A in the Brasileiro league. You have Botafogo, who is in 8th place, and you have Palmeiras, who are in 4th place, with the other team, Fluminense, that are in 6th place. So pretty good teams that are competing in this tournament, and that sounds like a pretty good answer, Gus. As far as players to watch go, right? So here in Inter Miami world, we're familiar with Facu Torres. We're familiar with a lot of the other names. As far as like Estevao, who's maybe one or two players that you can mention that are players that we should keep an eye out for that maybe people don't think about, first in their mind when they think of Palmeiras?
Of course, I have to go with Piqueires, left back. He's the guy that's going to surprise a lot of people. He
Yeah.
is the best left back in Brazil right now, and especially in attacking positions. Um, there's some other names that people already know, such as Richard Rios, that just played the Copa America final in Miami. If I'm not wrong, I think the Copa America final was
Yes.
in Miami.
Mhm.
That's a guy that most of the people already know. And Estevan, of course, a lot of people haven't been able to watch him play. That's probably his first big exposure, and he's already sold to Chelsea. Me personally, I'm not a huge fan of his football just yet. I haven't been bought in, but he's so young that I can't even criticize the kid. But I still think that he's got to shut up in the big game. He hasn't shut up in big games just yet. But Rafael Veiga, that's Palmeiras' creative midfielder. He hasn't played well in the past months. He's not in his best form, but he's one of those guys that can decide a game in just a second.
So I'm about to ask you how you think Inter Miami can win. But I think just from everything that you've explained collectively, I feel like one of the weaknesses that can work against Palmeiras is a good counter. I feel like counters can be able to be a big point into making a turn for the favor of Inter Miami. But let's just say you're a betting man, Gustavo. You like to bet on games, and
I
you're
do.
putting the whole house on Inter Miami, right? And you're not too sure about the bet that you just made, but you have incredible access to Javier Mascherano. and you go to Mascherano over by the locker room and you get to whisper in his ear, this is how you beat Palmeiras. What are you telling him?
Um, that's a good one. Of course, it all depends how Palmeiras is gonna come in, but I think use your speed. Different from Flamengo and Botafogo, you don't need to drop back like so low. You don't need to be that low close to your goalkeepers, but you gotta capitalize on your chances because Weberton is a pretty good goalkeeper. You're not gonna have that many chances, and messy ball, man. Try to put someone up front. That's why I think it's confusing because I don't think Suarez is the best option to play against this Palmeiras team. I
Mm.
think at the moment Gustavo Gomes would win pretty much every challenge against him. Maybe try to do a false nine, use some speed, use some momentum, switch back and forth, side to side, and try to get the Palmeiras defense out of position. Try to make them go out of position so you can find the space. And Mass is pretty good at that, and maybe put some of the younger kids so they can run and have those spaces behind the defense.
Well, Gustavo, you're pretty familiar with the MLS. You cover the
Yes,
MLS. You cover the Revs, right? And
yes.
in radio up in Massachusetts. You're familiar with the MLS. People like Fafa, I think, can make a big difference. I feel like we have a player that's named Alan Obando. A lot of people have been wanting him to play, but I mean, having Messi is going to be a big key as well.
Yeah, because Messi can shoot from outside the box, like no one else, right? I do think Inter Miami is going to have a hard time trying to get into Palmeiras box. So you're going to have those guys that can shoot. And that's, again, and I'm going to contradict myself in a little bit. Um, Suarez, that usually only gets the ball inside the box, he's going to have a hard time in that game. But in the other hand, having those guys that are used to those big moments, that is so key. And I was just talking to experience of what Flamengo did today. Flamengo goes down one goal, and but they had guys that play in every single type of competition, just like Danilo, who played in I don't know how many Champions League finals and played in Premier League, and you have Jorginho that was the third best player in the world in like 4 years ago. So
Yeah.
having those guys that are used to it and they're not gonna freak out as soon as they concede the first goal, and that they know that they still have a game to play, that's gonna be so important. So just contradicting myself, I do think the younger players statistically maybe they're gonna be more helpful, but having those experienced veterans guys like Fafa Pico that been maybe not in the biggest games out there, but he's been experienced and been in some good games as well, might be very important for the team.
And Francisco giving us play by play here says Gol Boca. I am
That's
Jekka
not good.
literally. I am Jekka says, I literally am going to go watch the game. Thank you for keeping the stream on Jekka. Much appreciated. Um, but now here's the thing, right? Suarez gives you the benefit of that veteranism, right? The goal scoring chops, but then you lose out on the speed. I mean, look, Mr. Krabs saying speed, so we're cooked, right? Miami Kings speed is Miami's weakness. Nick Smith says speed and Inter Miami
True.
don't mix. So there might be a pretty big problem. But let's just get to predictions here, Gustavo. Now you're the guest, so I'm going to allow you to be able to make the prediction between Palmeiras and Inter Miami. How do you think it's going to go?
Um, so I do think, just talking about a football side of things, Palmeiras is going to have the ball. Palmeiras is going to try, but every game I've seen from Inter Miami so far, uh, Messi tried to create things and trying to be dangerous all the time. So it's going to be a little interesting to see that battle. I do think Palmeiras is going to win the game, but it's not going to be as easy as people think, as people are mentioning. I would say a 2-1 Palmeiras might be the best result, or the result that I think is going to happen.
Now, I just looked at Palmeiras' last game against Al Ali. They only had 35% possession in that game. Palmeiras did have more possession against Porto, where they had 56%. Typically, I do see that they are a possession-based team. As far as predictions go, that's a pretty respectful prediction. Now, I'll tell you this much. If we wouldn't have won against Porto, I probably would have predicted Inter Miami to lose this game. because we're just happy to be at the party. But now that we've had a dance with a girl at the party, now we're excited. And now the fan base is excited. And now there's actually been published out there that Inter Miami, regardless of the result, is making it out of this round. Now,
Hopefully.
out of the group, hopefully, right? I mean, but I think that everybody is pretty happy to where we've gotten, and we competed against a pretty big team in comparison to, other MLS teams and Liga MX teams that we've competed with. I see a lot of people here. Miami King is saying 1-1. Soccer Daddy is saying 1-1 Miami goal. And Miami King saying both good for a draw. I mean, I guess people, look, Mr. Krabs is saying Miami wins 2-1. So he's going the other way on your prediction, Gus. This is, I just want to mention before I make this prediction, this is what's needed in this Club World Cup for especially fans here in America. This tournament is tearing at my heart. I can't believe I get so emotional for teams I rarely follow. This is a beautiful comment, and it's much appreciated from you, Circus Fun. I'm going to go with a really bold prediction here, Gustavo. I'm going to say it's going to be 2-0 Inter Miami wins. That's the prediction I'm going to go with. It's probably a little bit of a bold prediction, but that's what I'm going to go with. It might be far-fetched. It might be 2-1, to be honest, but I'm going to stick with it.
I hope it happens. I'm all for it for MLS teams. I would, of course, like to see Palmeiras going through, but from a fan, I think MLS going through would be very, very, very good for the tournament and for MLS itself. You mentioned the stats from last game, right? And I watched the game, and Ali had more possession, but Palmeiras still finished the game with more free kicks, more shots on goal, more corner kicks. So Palmeiras is a very strange team in that regards because they're not that joga bonito type of side. That's why a lot of people criticize about Ferreira, because they're not joga bonito at all, but they're still very effective. They're a very effective team. So when Inter Miami has a chance, they gotta capitalize on it, because Palmeiras most likely going to capitalize on the other side if they have the chance to.
Well, and I think we as a fan base know that more than anybody, because the difference with last game is that Palmeiras, even though they had less time with the ball, they had value when they had the ball. They valued their possession. So with us, like Inter Miami, we've had times where we've had games where we have 70% possession, but there's just not enough value behind what we're doing with the ball. So I think that's the difference with Palmeiras' last game, that even though they had less possession, they used their possession a lot more valuably than other teams would normally with that kind of possession.
And something that that the Inter Miami has to capitalize on is on the fans, right? I think this game is being played in Miami, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
At Hard Rock. It's a Monday night. I know it's complicated. I believe it's going to have a lot of Palmeiras fans, but probably not as many as Inter Miami, I'd say. So they got to capitalize on it. If they let happen what happened against Porto, where Palmeiras was pretty much the home team. Flamengo today was over 54,000 people in the stadium for Flamengo today, but 45 or 40,000 were just Flamengo fans. So they got to capitalize on it as well to create some momentum.
Well, and Mike V is saying my prediction is that we are losing this game 3-1, and Al Ahly is beating Porto 2-1, and we make it out of the group barely. Now, the thing, and you mentioned that, Gustavo, but we played against Al Ahly here in Miami, and it was basically an Al Ahly home game. They showed out in bunches. So if that's how a team from Egypt is showing out to Miami, and there's a lot of Brazilian people here in South Florida, a lot. So I imagine on a Monday where it's a work day and people are probably traveling to be able to watch this game, it might be more Brazilian fans, more Palmeiras fans than Inter Miami fans. So
I'm curious because just sorry to interrupt you, but
it's okay.
For example, for the second group, the group B, you had Botafogo fans, and they had either Atletico de Madrid or PSG to choose from. For example, if you only have conditions to go to one game, which game would you go? And people probably pick PSG. In
PSG,
Fluminense's group, you had the Borussia Dortmund, so that's the group that you would go. That's the game that you would go to
of
watch it.
course.
And for example, Flamengo, that has a lot of fans in the United States. Which game, if you have condition to go to one game, which game would you go? And that would be the Chelsea game that was today. So for Palmeiras, I'm interesting. If you had if you only had condition to go to one game, would you rather go watch Palmeiras in Porto, which is against the European side, or would you rather go watch Messi? So that's gonna be interesting to see, especially on a Monday night.
Well, I know that there's like a little rivalry between Portugal and Brazil. And so I feel like maybe the game versus Porto would have been a game that would have been picked over Inter Miami because of Inter Miami not being the level of club that Porto is. But I mean, Messi is Messi and he's playing with Inter Miami. So maybe it is a better decision to go with the Inter Miami side. Gustavo, before I let you go, I wanted to do some silly stuff. Do you have 5 minutes for my
Go ahead,
silliness real quick? Okay. So Gustavo, we try to do things a little fun here and we try to have fun with our guests. And I'm just going to ask you a couple questions and you tell me what you think, decisions that you'll make. Here we have 5 pieces of steak and 6 pieces of toast. Which ones are you going with?
So I'm very straight into medium rare. I'm a medium rare supporter. So
Nice,
I'll go with
number
number
2.
2 on the steak. And for the toast, I'll just go between 2 and 3.
2 and 3. Okay. All right. I didn't expect that. A lot of people go 3 anyways. So that's expectable. Now, when it comes to cutting a sandwich, Gus, how do you cut this kind of sandwich? How is
Diagonal for
Gus
sure.
cutting it? Diagonal?
Diagonal for sure. Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, as far as shopping for groceries, this might be a little silly, but I go and I shop for my groceries holding the front of the cart. Some people hold the back of the cart. So are you a puller or a pusher?
So that
Or
pull and
or
push
neither? A
on food
hand
is a
basket.
lot. Pull and push. I try to go basket every time I can, all right? But when I have a
Yeah.
cart, I'm usually behind the cart and I go a little. I try to get some momentum and then jump on the cart to see if I can just go like a so it carries me on, but I'm too heavy for it. So it usually goes like the front 2 wheels comes out and comes up. So I have never
That's
had much luck with the carts.
yes, that is a good choice. That is a good choice. And especially with the way that you pictured it, very, very fun. Very fun. Now, I don't know if you're big into boy bands, but Danny and I, my co-host, we have this debate: Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. Which
Uh,
which would you go with?
I'm too young for both of them, but
Oh,
I'll go with Justin Timberlake and NSYNC.
yes. Well, that's my choice. Danny picks Backstreet Boys, so that's
I'm a
my choice.
huge Justin Timberlake guy.
Now, is Super Mario a superhero?
Nope,
No, but he
that's a
shoots
physical.
fireballs.
Yeah, and I can shoot water into the whatever. So that doesn't make me Aquaman if I get water in my mouth and just shoot somewhere.
And what about Batman? Is Batman a superhero?
Yeah,
So Batman's a superhero. He has no superpowers.
he has a
He
lot of
has a
money.
home he has a lot of money. He's a Home Depot customer.
I would say having a lot of money is a superpower for some people.
Look, Mike B saying he's a super plumber for Super Mario. And Nick Smith saying bring back Gus for previews of the Revs game. That would be good. Would you be willing to come back to preview the
Yeah,
Revs? They
I believe you guys are playing a Gillette on July
July
9th, if
8th.
I'm
July
mistaken.
8th, July
8th.
9th. It's right here for my son's birthday. I'm probably gonna be going out there.
Hopefully, and I'm not gonna say that out loud, but hopefully we have a new coach by then.
Well, I mean, hopefully Campana's playing because that's my son's favorite player. So I'd like to go over there and
Yeah, I like Campana, but he needs to step up a little bit.
he does. He does. Especially he's been getting injured, man. Gustavo, thank you so much for coming on. at such short notice. Shout out to Eric. Eric was supposed to be on with us to preview, but he's had a long day. And Gustavo came on and graced us with his presence and helped us to preview this Palmeiras game. Gustavo, let everybody know where they can be able to find you and all the good stuff you got going on.
Yeah, shout out to Eric, an American Palmeiras fan. I'll be seeing him next week when the Flamengo goes down in Orlando to play LFC. You guys can see me on my Twitter right here, where I usually post mostly rev stuff and also a little bit of my coverage that I'm doing with the Zone. My days has been a little busy the past couple weeks because of Flamengo, so I haven't been able to be on Twitter that much. But you guys can just give me a follow, and I am on the Zone Spain, the Zone Global English, everywhere on the Zone. I'm doing coverage for Flamengo as we just beat Chelsea. Now we have LAFC next week, which should be interesting, and hopefully we can win against LAFC. I don't want them to win any games in this group stage. I think that'll be funny. So you guys can watch me on the Zone and also right here on my Twitter.
Nice. Gustavo, thank you so much. It's really appreciated. And guys, thank you guys so much for listening online. If you're listening through Apple, Spotify, please leave us 5 stars. Put down a comment, say, Danny, leave Disney World. And for those of you that are sitting on the chat, thank you guys so much for sticking around live with us, even before 10 o'clock at night. You guys are 1,000%, 10,000% the greatest part about this show. Without you guys, it would be miserable. Thank you guys so much. For those of you that haven't, like and subscribe, comment, put down whatever you're feeling, whatever you're thinking about the matchup this coming week. And guys, thank you guys sticking around so much. And until the next one, have a good one.